Hi and welcome. If you're looking for a competition to enter because you're a writer and you'd like the publicity and feel that you have the skills to win such competitions, have you heard of the Writers of the Future competition? If not, stay tuned because I interview John Goodwin from Writers of the Year and he will explain the process, what you can win and all the details and the history of the competition. So here is my interview with John Goodwin. Okay, John, if you don't mind just doing a little introduction to for yourself and just to the audience who won't know who you are or what we're about, because you organise the writing competition of these Writers of the Year, and then that's an anthology that goes out once a year or twice a year?
Once a year. The current volume is this one here. So this is so this podcast, is this video or audio?
Both. It'll go out on Spotify. Spotify like to do video versions as well as my YouTube channel as well.
Okay, good.
So welcome, John. I'll let you get ready. Okay, so I'll just do a brief intro. So,
what happened here? I'm going to color bar. I'm gonna. If it goes to color bar, I'm gonna have. Maybe I should switch the camera. Just doing my. The color's not nearly as good, but this is my laptop, so it's. Let me just make the light a little bit wider. Okay,
great. So welcome, John. Welcome to Sci-Fi Fans, the podcast. And I've asked you to come on board for a chat because you were one of the organisers of the Writers of the Year competition. And I was fortunate enough to interview one of your winners earlier. And I thought to have you come on to talk about the competition, how long you've been doing the competition for, and what benefits that as an author it can give and over to you.
Okay, great. So my name is John Goodwin. I'm the president of Galaxy Press, and I'm also president of Author Services, the literary agency for L. Ron Hubbard. In 1983, L. Ron Hubbard created the Writers of the Future contest the year following releasing Battlefield Earth, which was his reemergence into the science fiction and fantasy community. He had been a very popular writer through science fiction's golden age in the 30s and 40s. In fact, one of his most popular books is the one called Final Blackout, which takes place in London, but this is in the 40s. So the Writers of the Future, I'm assuming your audience is mostly UK?
50-50, to be honest. We've got a split of in UK and American, some in Asian territories as well. So it's quite a broad spectrum.
That's great. Yeah, because I prepared, like in the UK, we've had 28 winners, and that goes back to the first one in 1987, Volume 3. But Stephen Baxter was a winner in Volume 5, and Elizabeth Ween, #1 New York Times bestseller, she was in Volume 9, and goes on from there. There's been, like I said, there's been 28 winners so far from there, and for me, why I so appreciate being able to do this interview with yourself is I know that people that will be listening to this are themselves writers and artists that want to be able to get that break. What are some different things I can have to assist me, because there's over 3 million books published a year right now. And so how do you get your voice heard above the din of everybody else trying to get their voice heard too? So podcast is one thing, but one thing that we're talking about is Writers of the Future. So L. Ron Hubbard presents Writers of the Future, which is an annual anthology that gets released. This is volume 41. And what makes our competition and the series so unique is that it's judged by some of the biggest names in science fiction and fantasy. So we've got, like this cover I just showed you was done by one of our illustrator judges, Craig Elliott. He's the art director for Disney and Netflix, and so this was one of his concepts for Treasure Planet. It wasn't used, so they used his other art for Treasure Planet, but this one here, he then took this and turned this into the cover. But we've had some of the judges we've had from the very beginning. Some of these people you might know, Anne McCaffrey, the Dragon Riders. You may have heard of Hal Clement, Orson Scott Card, the guy that wrote Ender's Game. There's this one guy named Frank Herbert. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He wrote this little book called Dune, and he was one of the first judges. Jack Williamson, Gene Wolfe, Roger Zelazny. We've had so many amazing judges, and it still continues on. Kevin Anderson is one of our judges right now, and we've been following his career since he was entering the contest way back at the beginning. So what this is, and what I do as the president, I supervise. I don't do any judging. The judges are only done by the judging is only done by the judges, and the way they get it, the way it works is the Rise of the Future is broken into 4 quarterly contests, and there's 3 winners chosen from the writer's side and 3 winners chosen from the illustrator side every quarter, and the judges only see the story or the 3 pieces of art and a number. So you have no idea if you're male, female, your nationality, ethnic, anything about you, just that you wrote a good story or you did good art. And then that's what gets published story-wise in the book. And then the 12 winning illustrators, because they submitted 3 pieces of art, each are sent one of the 12 winning writer stories. They have to illustrate that, and that's what's published in Writers of the Future. And then one of the illustrator winners and one of the writer winners is chosen as the grand prize winner, who wins an additional $5,000. But again, what makes this unique is that the contest is free to enter. Winners are flown out from wherever they are in the world to Hollywood for a week-long workshop taught by these judges. And then we have a fantastic gala that's in Hollywood that's referred to, it's been nicknamed the Oscars of science fiction and fantasy. And if you see any of the pictures, any of the videos of the event itself, all of it can be found at riseofthefuture.com. And it's something that really gives a person a leg up. We do, as one of the winners was on the show with you, we do a lot of media for the winners to help them get their name out there so they can see, that there's a lot of potential for them, but people need to know about them. So we do a lot of, in the workshop, we do a lot of training and drilling on how to do media, how to do interviews. So it's something that's been going on. And one thing that's very special is that this year we break 1,000 writers and artists published in Writers of the Future. So in volume 42, we'll hit the 1,000, which is significant for science fiction, number 42, life, the universe, and everything. So we're pretty excited about, what's coming up.
So you mentioned the workshops. Is that in that week that everybody assembles before the presentation? So in that week, there's a heavy duty workshops by the sound of it.
Exactly, yeah. And so the workshop is the 2 main instructors are Tim Powers, and he's the one that wrote like on Stranger Tides, what was made into the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, but he's won 3 World Fantasy Awards, and Jodi Lanai, who is a multiple best-selling author, and she teaches the whole writing track at DragonCon, and so she's been a judge for several years. And then we also have like Kevin Anderson comes, Orson Scott Card, Nina Nikriki Hoffman, Hugh Howey, Nancy Kress, Catherine Kurtz, Todd McCaffrey, Rebecca Mesta, Larry Niven. He wrote Ringworld, Jody, Nedia Corfor, Brandon Sanderson. He hasn't been for a while, but he became a judge 10 years ago. Dean Wesley Smith, Steve Sterling. So we've got some amazing writer judges. And then do you have artists that also listen to this podcast as well?
Possibly. I mean, it goes out because I'm a self-published author. I've published 1 main book, 1 side story. I'm releasing my 2nd book in November. So, and I started off listening to other internet people such as Dale Roberts and Jenna Rossi, who are pretty big in the self-publishing industry. So I've tried to balance writing and working and and just trying to generate an interest. So the audience for this is varied. So, and I
Yeah,
try to connect with artists as well, because it's a very important connection to have, just as important as an editor, is to
for
have
sure.
an artist that you can trust and you can work
Well, it
together.
took somebody that did all those beautiful statuettes that are behind you there on your shelves there. That was an
Yeah,
artist that created those.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So I'd like to think, the podcast is essentially to reach out and support other people,
that's great.
and learn things as you go along as well, because you're always learning something, no
Yeah,
matter what industry you're doing. I mean, I've been a carer for 20 plus years, but there's always difference in practice. Somebody has done something and found a different way of improving the service. So you never know everything. It doesn't matter how long you've been doing something, there's always something to learn. So
yeah, that's for sure. I've had a guy that runs the Kindlepreneur for Amazon, and I've had two guests on so far from Ingram Spark, and I'll be getting the director of Ingram Spark on my podcast in the next few weeks. So
right,
it's yeah, no, it's important that you've got people like yourself that are like interested and willing to lend a helping hand, and say, look, this is what I know. You're not competition, you're my next great read,
yeah,
so it's got
yeah.
to be viewed like that.
I was talking to somebody last week. We went for a job interview together, and we didn't get the job, which is I think it's unfortunate, but fortunate, because then it means I can concentrate on my writing. And I explained to her that when I started my journey, I did have that vision of, well, everybody else is competition. But as I've matured and I've listened to other people, like, no, you've got a point. We're not competition. We're a community.
Yeah,
And it's about building that community, because my reader could be your reader. And it's just about raising each other up. As if we can help lift each other up in our own way, then that's kind of what I try and do.
yeah,
So,
that's absolutely right. That's like Orson Scott Card. He's the author of Ender's Game.
yeah,
He's been a judge for 35 years for the contest. He says, I do it. There's no way it's a competition. He said, I love to read. I'm want to be able to help have more of a cause point in discovering my next favorite authors. And there's so much demand for content. It's not.
yeah,
I mean, on my podcast, I read a book a week too,
right,
because I interview authors,
yeah,
and it's amazing when I'm able to find and discover and talk about on my podcast with these people. And it's so much fun. It's so rewarding, and you
yeah,
see, wow, that's an amazing voice that hopefully I can help them, do a bit better and get heard, because their story is really important to be told. And it's not like fiction is just, oh yeah, it's just fiction. No, it's like what fiction does. And as an author, you need to know this too, because you're not in it to be a rich millionaire. That's for sure. You got a story to tell. You got a story to
yeah,
tell. And it's a way with science fiction and fantasy, you can actually tell that story in a format that won't be so divisive as regular conversation seems to be these days on
yeah,
social media and in public. So you can take another planet, a different time, and have, two crazy political parties just constantly clashing. And you can look and go, oh, that's just so silly. Oh, come on. And then all of a sudden you kind of like, it gives you a little bit more of a perspective to see what's going on here, because in the story you can have it all resolved and people can actually start working together, and they're
yeah,
like, so you can have that realization or whatever it's going to be. You're not trying to patronize, you're not trying to say, okay, good, I'm going to teach you my lesson of morality, but you can do stuff that you can't otherwise do, and that's one thing that's great about science fiction and fantasy.
No, I'd agree, and I think that's something that I enjoy. Is that I'm going to quote, I think it's Stephen King, who said, "You take ordinary people, put them into extraordinary situations to see what they do," and
Hmm.
that's what I try and do, and how I try and write my characters. So, how did you get involved with the competition, John? Did
It
you?
it kind of came with the job. What I did was I originally, um, I mean, I've just had a thing throughout my whole life where every year, especially going through school, I'd take a different job. because I didn't want to just like, okay, I am a blonde. No, I alternated between outside work like constructions because I wanted to learn all the different trades. So I had the vision when I was in high school and college, I was going to build my own home. It didn't happen, but I'm not intimidating anymore about any housework that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of inside jobs. And then I ended up working at a publisher, Bridge Publications, back in 1986. And we publish all the fiction and nonfiction works of L. Ron Hubbard. And that's when I first got acquainted with Writers of the Future on Volume 2. So I was involved then with the manufacturing of it and marketing of it, but I didn't really go out and do the sales and meetings and traveling and stuff like that to the events. That came a few years later. And then as I became familiar with all the different hats of a publishing house, I was asked in 2002 to start a new publisher called Galaxy Press. And so I became the president of Galaxy Press, and I've been that since 2002 when it started. So that's been 23 years now that I've been the president of Galaxy Press. Yeah. And so we've continued on with this. And on volume 30, we switched to this format with trade paperback. And we also made it so that the winning artists would have their art published in the in the front as color pages. And so it's been quite a means of celebrating the artists, which we weren't able to do before because in the original mass market editions, they were just black and white on there. And the quality of black and white and mass market, isn't nearly as good as what you can do on with this type of offset presses. So I've been involved with that since then, and I just got more and more, each year we have the event, each year has to be better than the previous year. And so now, after 40 plus years, that's a lot of has to be better than. So it's pretty good. So when I do the event, we have 20 to 30 media come to cover the event on the red carpet. We get various celebrities that come and do presentations and, the awards. And then with the keynote speakers, we have many astronauts, engineers, celebrities, NASA people who have spoken about the inspiration of science fiction to the future of space exploration. I ran into Elon Musk a few years ago at a Star Wars premiere on Hollywood Boulevard, and we chatted for a bit. And because he's a voracious reader, so I asked him about the Battlefield Earth. He said, "Oh yeah, I read that when I was 13. I think I love. Great book. Can you give me a blurb?" No, but. Then I said, "Well, do you like to speak? Because we have our annual Rise of the Future." He says, "I feel uncomfortable speaking." He seems to have handled that now. But at the time, he was still not into that zone yet of speaking. But so many people. We had the director of the NASA Ames Research Center, said that he used to get busted when he was in high school. Because he would be in history class and he'd have the history book, but inside the history book, he would have a pulp magazine reading. And the teacher would come up and say, "What are you reading?" He said, "I'm reading about the future of mankind." So I said, okay, didn't go over too well, but he definitely kept his inspiration up there to lead Ames,
Yeah. So as a writer then, what would be the process for me to submit the story to?
Good question. So the on our website, writersofthefuture.com, we've got two portals. If you navigate, the bars can navigate on the left side of the screen. So there's Enter Writer Contest and Enter Illustrator Contest. You go there. It is recommended. We have a free online writing workshop that we offer, which made a big difference in the number of honorable mentions that started happening because people got some more, they were just, I have a story, so they write a story and send it in, but they didn't realize there's actually technology to writing a short story, to writing to any story. So that's taught. We have a series, I think 16 videos there with Kevin Anderson, Nydia Okorafor, Tim Powers, Robert J. Sawyer, Dave Wolverton, who passed away a few years ago, and I think there's one more. But anyway, I got myself tripped up with all the different people there. But they have videos, and they just tell you It's not like they're in a conversation. They're just like right now you're looking at me, I'm looking at you. It's that
Yeah.
type of video. They're just somebody's just
Right.
talking to you, telling you about
Yeah.
each step, how to start a story, how to create suspense, how to handle dialogue, how to keep a story going, how to finish a story, all the different pieces of it. And then Kevin Anderson has one on the business of writing, and Nydia Corfor how to edit. So, and then we have about a dozen essays by Owen Hubbard that he wrote, which are used in the writing workshop itself. So
Right.
what you do is if you do the course, it's free to enter. You can go at your own pace. You can see it as many times as you want to.
Yeah.
And then you submit your stories up to 17,000 words. It's science fiction, fantasy, alternate history, all in the speculative fiction, PG-13,
Yeah.
PG-17, range.
Okay.
If there's any F-bombs, it's going to get edited out if it makes it to the final cut.
Yeah.
No gratuitous sex. Any sex is actually done off the page. And no gratuitous violence. The sweet spot, maybe 4,000 to 7,000 words. And realize
Right.
if you've got a novel and say I'm going to submit to this story, like Patrick Rothfuss, that's how he got his break, was with his contest. So he had a novel, and so he took a chapter. He was told about the contest, and so he said, okay, he took a novel, he took a chapter out and rewrote it as a short story. Just don't take just don't take a chapter and submit it, because that'll, if anything, it'll piss off the judges, because if they get to the end and find out to be continued, it's like, so what they'll do is they'll read the beginning, and then if they like it, they'll go to the end to make sure that really is an end,
Yeah.
and then go back and read the story.
Okay.
But so it's got to be its own arc in and of itself. And if you pull it from a novel, it's got to be its own arc. And then and then you submit it, you upload it. You can submit one story a quarter, so you can submit 4 times a year. And the way it works now, because there's so many entries, we now have different levels. So you submit the beginning level, and if nothing happens, you get back, and the worst that's going to happen is you get an email saying, thank you very much, please submit again. That's the worst.
Yeah.
And then the top 10 percentile start getting certificates. And the first level is honorable mention. And there you'll get a certificate saying honorable mention. And then there's silver honorable mention, which is the next level up. And then there's finalist, semifinalist, and winner. And so it goes like that as you escalate up. And it gives you a bit of a weather gauge of like, am I getting better or not? And so some people can just see, okay, some people have gotten like 15 honorable mentions before, and a couple silvers and a finalist before finally winning, or before they pro out. That's another thing that happens. Like Kevin Anderson, Robert J. Sawyer, Brandon Sanderson pro'd out, meaning that they sold a novel and it did well enough that they disqualified for being able to enter the contest, because it's for amateurs only.
Right.
So and it says in the back of the book, what you have to do, what disqualifies you, what doesn't. I'll just read the thing there. So it's the way it works is, the contest this is rule number 5. The contest is open only to those who have not professionally published a novel or short novel, or more than 1 novelette, or more than 3 short stories in any medium. Professional publication is deemed to be payment of professional rates at the time of publication. Currently it's 8 cents a word, and at least 5,000 copies or 5,000 hits. So even if you've been published but didn't sell that much, you're still able to enter. The other thing too that we had to recently add as a rule is no AI. So no AI in storytelling, no AI in art. And if we find it, you're automatically disqualified. And we have tools that we use. The writing is still pretty easy to tell. The judges are very well read. The art, there's apps that you can use that are AI can tell if it's AI that was used. Yeah. In which case that gets rejected. And it's pretty easy. You can just say, okay, send me your layered files, for me to know that you really did create this and isn't just an AI thing.
Yeah, that's fair enough, because I mean, AI is, I think it can be a useful tool, but it is a bane, because I see a lot of people that don't care about the industry just publishing AI drivel because they're chasing that fast dollar, that fast buck, and people are falling for it, which then casts a shadow on people like myself who have the idea, go through the stress of writing it, editing it, and they just say, "Oh, it's self-published, so it must be AI." You know.
Yeah. Well,
So
it's starting to get a bit of a backlash now. The thing is, any story that any concept in an AI written book is going to make you, is going to become a cash cow. Is that in itself is a lie? It's not. And so that someone says it, there's so much false data right now on the internet.
yeah,
It's amazing, that so they'll say, and it gets harder and harder, but it's something that L. Ron Hubbard made a big point of, especially with illustration and art. Like, you got to put the love and the care in it.
yes.
In the back of Battlefield Earth, he said, ultimately, when you had in Battlefield Earth, are you familiar with any of any L. Ron Hubbard's works?
Battlefield Earth, yes. That's probably the main one that I'm familiar with.
Because that one there, that was multiple New York Times best-selling book, sold over 4 million copies. But in it, and he wrote that in 8 months, 425,000 words. It was like he was amazing, his creative speed.
Yeah.
But in an interview he did after he wrote it with the Rocky Mountain Times, he said that ultimately it's the human spirit that's going to survive. Even when you've got these aliens coming in and doing stuff, it's the human spirit that's going to be the drive, not some robot, not some person that's been totally, with implants and chips and stuff like that. It's the human spirit that's going to make things work. And that's what you've got when you have creativity. Creativity is that spark of life that makes that happen. It's not a regurgitation of a million books that have come in now. We're taking a class now in prompts. No, we're not doing that. That's I've used Grammarly to double check to make sure I've got stuff. I reject half the things that it says to do, but at least it gives me stuff to look at, because it's got some fixed ideas of your writing has to be always active, never passive. It's got to have, you have to know what type of format you're doing there.
Yeah. But
it's important that, for yourself as an author to maintain your integrity, because ultimately that's going to pay off. And, I was talking to somebody recently, just saying, on your dying bed, would you rather, have just, done the quickie thing, or just say, look at, I actually did it. I don't have a regret that I didn't write my book, that I always wanted to do.
Yeah.
Obviously, you want your book to be a bestseller or to do well, but that comes from writing books.
No, it does. I mean, I said this to John, I think, Aaron, the guy that I spoke to last time. I'll hold my hand up. I have used it. I've experimented with it, not for the creation process. So I've written the story, but I have used AI for voiceovers because, believe it or not, I don't feel comfortable reading my own stories.
Yeah.
But I have since took stock and thought, well, actually, no, I'm going to do it myself, whether I'm good at it or not. Because one thing that I will have is that human connection. They will know it's me. And if they don't like me reading my own stories, or if I'm not very good at it, at least they will know it's me and I will get better.
Exactly.
So I've taken a step back from it. And I've also started to do videos as well with 3D software to tell my stories. So... And again, I struggled with AI because it's just me. This is the other. I've got financial restraints, but I'm taking it back. I've decided that, it's better to be human and bad.
It's not even that it's not be human and bad. It's like you can get I know multiple authors that read their own books now. They're doing it, and you just get better. You read it and you get better, and the guys that go, I want to do AI reading it, the problem with AI is it doesn't like certain words when you like I really want to go to the store, or is different than I really want to go to the bathroom. Because when you say I really want to go to the bathroom,
Yeah.
I really want to go to the bathroom, it'll be read differently than I really want to go to the store and get an ice cream. It's just it's the same word.
Yeah.
And so when a person's reading it, they can put in that emotion and that inflection in it, and because you understand the nuances of the language, whereas a computer, you can program different things into it, but it's not going to have that. And especially as the author, you're not going to be able to just turn that over to a machine and say, okay, it really got what I meant when I wrote it this way, because it won't know that. It doesn't know that. And so that's one thing that always makes it different. We do a lot of audiobooks, and our audiobooks are multicast with 150,000 sound effects. Radio theater, and and all the actors are in the studio on stools looking at each other as they read it. And so it's much more dynamic, and they really get into it. They have so much fun, and you can tell that it's that, and it's not like individual actors in their own little studio, then it gets mixed afterwards. So just you can do a lot of stuff to create and make things good as a creative, which is what's really good. So when I was I've talked to various authors, and they've asked them, so what book should I start with? And they'll say, oh, start with like number 7 in my series. That's when I really got up to speed. Okay, good. So that's, you just give yourself, you did your first book, that puts you already in the top 1 or 2 percentile of anybody. The number of people that say, oh, I want to write a book, I wish I could write a book, I wish I could do that, they never get past that. And then people say, well, I started but I couldn't finish it. You're past that. You've actually changed and stopped and finished a book. Which is kudos to you. So now the next step is the next book and the next book, and they're always going to get better because you're getting better with the muse.
Absolutely. And I think I am going back to my first book just to reread it and refresh myself as I prepare for launching the second book, because just to make sure that they do fit as they should, as I intend them to do.
The main character's got the same name.
He's still got the same name. But I've said to my wife, I'm not making too many changes as I do it, because at the end of the day, some people get fixated. It's got to be perfect. It's got to be perfect. Well, for me, the first book is done. It just needs a little bit of a tweak. The second book, and I think the second book will be a better book and a better read, because I've learned and I've got that experience from doing the first.
Sure. It should be.
And that's how I look at it. So the third book is finished, but I haven't looked at it for editing or anything like that. Because initially when I done the first book, I wrote 2 books, and then I just went away from it because of work and everything else. I come back to it and thought, no, I've got to get this published. Otherwise, there's no point in writing this if I'm not going to publish it. And as I was going through the editing of the 2 books, I realised that the second one starts too far in the future. There's a big enough gap to fill with a proper sequel. I then spent 5 years writing. So, but I'm now at that stage where it's like, well, okay, book 1's done. Let's just, apart from making sure it does tie in nicely to the sequel that I've got coming out, book 3, once I've launched book 2, I can then look at sorting out book 3, and then just continuing the story in various different forms. So I've got a couple of YouTube channels, and one of them I'm now dedicating to my books, and I try and do a series that goes out twice a week on there, which is set in the same universe but a different time period. And I want to build out the lore and the history of the universe that the first 2 books are connected to. So it's it's busy. But I love it. I love just sitting
That's
down
great.
and thinking about these ideas because I'm a pantser. So, so yeah, chuck it out there and see what happens.
Or do you publish through Amazon or through Kindle or
Yes, I've published.
Amazon Kindle, or do you do?
I've I've gone wide. So both books are available on as many ebook platforms as possible. I've gone through Draft to Digital, so they do a lot of
Yeah.
the wide distribution. But it's just that this is the thing, isn't it? You say I want to be a writer, and you've touched on this. Once you've done the book, you're no longer a writer. You're now a promoter. You're a publicist. You've got to sort out your website. You've got, and yeah, my head's still spinning if I'm honest.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, people need to deal with that too. I just, writing is, it's obviously a key element, but if you're not willing to go out there and, beat the pavement, I did an interview yesterday with a guy named James Nettles,
Right.
and he wrote a book. I don't know if you're familiar with him or not, but he wrote a book on publishing. And one thing he says is, one, get rid of the idea that you can't fail if you don't try. He said, rather, if you don't try, you can never succeed.
Yeah.
And he also went in there and said too that you as an artist or as a creator, you've got to, you can be your own worst enemy by not getting out there and promoting yourself. So it's important. He has this datum like obscurity is the enemy of the author, and so what you're doing now with your own this podcast and whatever else you're doing on social media, you've got to get out there, and you got to also attend conventions.
Yeah.
Get out there and do this, which is what we do with Rise to the Future. Anybody that's a winner, we, at least in the United States, we're able to give them pro passes into Dragon Con. We can get them into San Diego Comic Con. We can get them into FanX Salt Lake.
Yeah.
And we get in Dragon Con and FanX, we get extra tables there, which we just provide for the winners.
Right.
And they just have to have their own Cash App, and then they can sell whatever they've published and keep 100%, and they have to take care of their own taxes and stuff like that.
Yes.
But that's just part of what the contest does to help winners, because you've got to make yourself known. You've got to get out there and just, do the podcast circuit, do radio, do TV, do print interviews, attend conventions, being on panels, chumming it, go to BarCon afterwards at the end of the day. So you can just kind of like get to know people, and more importantly, people can get to know you and like, okay, I'll try your book. Because all you need is somebody's got a good following. You say, hey, wow, Wayne's got an amazing science fiction book that you need to check out.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it starts off, but you need to make those connections.
No, exactly. I mean, and I would rather have a community of people that believe in my work, enjoy what I write. I'd rather have a small community than hundreds of millions of followers on social media, because I want that interaction. I want people that are interested in what I'm doing, and I want to please them. At the end of the day, if I'm doing something right and I'm making them happy and they're enjoying the stories I have to tell, that is what it's all about.
Yeah, but hundreds of millions of followers on social media will help you to get more readers. So I got what you're saying there. Your goal isn't to just build up lots of different likes on your social pages. Your goal is to have readers that really like your work and are anxious for the next one to come out.
Yeah.
Good. That makes sense. That's a good thing to want.
Thank you. So, okay. We've been going for nearly, what are we? 45 minutes. So, is there anything else you'd like to say, John, about the? Well, I've covered quite a lot.
Yeah, but one thing I would say is like I am the publisher of Galaxy Press too, so it would be I'd be very remiss if I didn't say please go to, your favorite bookstore in UK. I think we're in Waterstones. We're in a few different places there with Writers of the Future. We definitely have many winners there. Minimally, you can go to Amazon and get your copy. But get a copy of Writers of the Future. If you're a writer, then that gives you the gauge. You know how good you have to be professional, because these people prior to being published in Writers of the Future were amateur, and now they're qualified as pro. And then the other thing is, a lot of times writers and artists are somewhat introverted. They don't, what you're saying there about you have to get out there and being on social and stuff like that. It's harder to do that sometimes than writing a book, because you have no problem being in your own room typing away and just between you and your made up characters. But now to talk to real people, and especially after the pandemic, where the big antisocial people in the sky were cutting everybody's communication line with each other so that you didn't talk to people. But you need to see how good you have to be, but then you can, get this, and your friends or your family or your husband or your wife or your partner, if they write good stuff or do good illustrations and say, no, I'm not good enough. I'll never be good enough. We've had it a couple times where our contest director will call us and say, congratulations. Say, congratulations, what? You won. I won what? Writers of the Future. I didn't enter Writers of the Future. Pause. Honey? Yeah, I submitted it for you. I thought it was really good. And so, so you can have people that, feel like I'm not good enough. Well, just submit, because like I said, the worst thing that's going to happen is you get an email that says, thank you very much, resubmit. And the judges have no idea who they're reading. All they see is a number. So even if it is like you just got to do it, get out there and just get over that. You got to start getting your skin thickened up a little bit there. Because as a writer, especially if you're going to go traditional route, you've got to get that thick skin going. We've got some of our judges who are like major, like the guys that write the Dune movies and the Dune prequel, stuff like that. He still gets rejects on stories that he submits. So you just got to get over it. Kevin Anderson, the first award that he got was a trophy that said the author most likely to fail. That was the first award he got. And now he's one of the highest paid authors in America. So he can't not write. So if you're like that, then just take advantage that you've got that muse working for you and just submit. Like I said, the worst that's going to happen is you get an email saying, thank you very much, resubmit. And then we've got a forum at writersofthefuture.com you can join. That you can talk to people and they can give you the ideas and tips, and you can share your stories with them. There's only one rule in the forum is no hate. So if you're come in here and make some derogatory comment, you get one warning. You do it a second time, you're banned. Not just kicked out, you're banned.
Fair enough. No, that's fair enough.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's writersofthefuture.com, and then you can also just go to Galaxy Press and get your copy of the Writers of the Future, any of the volumes going back to the beginning. So there we go.
Okay. So just to clarify, then, someone in my situation who potentially would have released two books on Amazon, haven't sold 100 copies.
Yeah, then you're still totally fine. You can submit.
It's up to 5,000. So only if we've sold over 5,000 copies.
And pro rates, which right now is 8 cents a word.
Right.
So if you didn't make 8 cents a word, even if you sold 10,000, but you sold them at like a penny a word, then you're still able to enter. Okay,
no, that sounds great. And the submission time period,
Okay, so it goes now. So right now we're in the first quarter of year 43. So that started October 1st, goes to December 31st. And then the second period is January through March, then April through June, and then July through September. And those are the 4 periods throughout the year.
Okay.
Automatically rolls over. So if one thing that several of our winners said they really liked and appreciated having a deadline. They learned to write to a deadline. So it made them it forced them to not get, well, I'm not really into it. No, it's, that's balderdash. It's what you'll get from are established writers. They don't get into this word block stuff.
Right.
It's not that. And so it's in fact, there was one that we had with, what was her name? It was one of the writers. She just passed away recently, a mystery writer. She said all she needed to do if she felt like not writing, she just went and picked up her stack of bills, and that's all the encouragement she needed, because she had to write to pay the bills.
So just a question on submissions. How well edited does the submission need to be? Because I think some people might get a little bit hang up that they have to hire a professional editor to have it polished. So what would be the standard of editing?
It's got to be in pretty good shape. If the readers get it and they find a bunch of typos in the first page, it's not going to make it. It'll get immediately rejected. If you have the wrong, it says in the rules how to submit it, what type of format, double space and all that type of stuff. If you're not going to follow that, you'll get bounced right away. If you try to use, okay, I'm going to use green ink on the first page and then pink ink on the second page, you're getting bounced. If you put your name on the manuscript, you're getting bounced. You put the name is on the front form that you use to sign up, that gets attached, the number gets attached to your story. So you need to follow the rules. And but if there's, you might get, if it gets good enough, you start getting okay, if you're rejected at this point, check it be any of these 8 points that you need to review. So and then once you get to being a finalist, then you start getting critiques from the judges, actual personalized critiques for your story.
Right.
But so if it's sloppy, then it's not going to make it, because there's a lot of other people are, there's thousands of entries coming in, so a lot, and there's only 12 stories a year gets published, but what you get when you get published is just like second to none on any of the writing competition. And then a lot of people, when they get to the level of being finalist or even silver auto mention, they're able to sell those stories to other markets. And so if you don't care enough to have your story in a readable shape, then quite possibly the judges aren't going to have time to read that story either.
That's fair enough.
Yeah,
that's reasonable. Because again, it's also a representation of the person that's submitting, isn't it?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's sloppy, then that just shows how serious they're taking it.
Exactly. That's for sure. So it's just a matter of, like, if you're going to take it serious, like you're saying there, and submitting it, which is good. But this isn't the only market. When you submit to Rise of the Future, then a lot of people that win the contest say, look, this is the market I was working for. Now, once I win Rise of the Future, and I'll start sending everywhere else. But that was the first thing they were going for. But just realize, too, you got other magazines and other publications you can submit for, once you submitted to Rise of the Future.
Yeah.
So, and just because you didn't win Rise of the Future doesn't mean it wasn't a good story. We've had one year there were 3 really good werewolf stories. Well, we're not going to publish 3 werewolf stories, so only one of them made the cut. So the other 2 got rejected as finalists, and they didn't say, look, it's a really good story. Just I already got a werewolf story. So that's going to happen too when on any publication you submit for. It might be, okay, I'm going to go to Asimov. Well, they might think, you might say, amazing story. I've already bought one of these. I published something like this last month. So all that kind of stuff are things you need to deal with. So you got to keep on just letting it out there.
Okay. All right. I think we've pretty much covered everything.
Good.
I can't think of anything else. Thank you so much for joining me, John, and giving me your time for a start. So thank you for that. And I'll get this all sorted out and put up for my viewers. And I appreciate you coming on board and talking about this competition. I think it's something that's very valuable as a self-published author or someone that wants to break into the industry. It's certainly be a good thing to have on their CV to say, even that recommendation that, not, you know, you haven't done so well this time, but you know, we're going to recommend, we'll give you a shout out anyway. So
yeah, great. Well, thank you very much for having me on as a guest, Wayne.
That's okay, thank you. And keep in touch. I'd love to speak to any more of your authors, winners and artists as well.
Good.
So
I'll let Carmen know to continue reaching out, because like I said, we've had 28, and hopefully as a result of this interview and more interviews in the UK, well, that number will continue to ratchet up.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, enjoy the rest of your day, John.
Thank you very much, Wayne. And have a good night.
And you, thank you. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.